What makes a legacy? Is it accomplishments? Is it accolades? Or is it something else entirely? This question is one that has wandered the collective consciousness for a while now, yet there is no one concrete answer, at least not one we all can agree on. So if we're all still contemplating and debating on what creates a legacy, how then is a fictional character supposed to build one? Well, there is no one particular answer, but I think that Meruem from Hunter x Hunter can provide us with an answer. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about what makes Meruem so memorable. The introduction of Meruem was preceded by the meticulously planned out introduction of the Chimera ants. With their first introduction to the series, these ants were shown to be unnatural compared to what hunters like Kite had seen in other wildlife. This fact was compounded as we, the audience, learned more and more about these ants while the main cast remained in the dark. As we grew to know the species, we saw the horrors and atrocities that they committed. And even more terrifying, we saw their evolution. We watched them grow from oversized insects to human-sized man-eating monsters, and finally to Nen-wielding super soldiers. The gradual progression of this species slowly took us into the darkness that would soon be known as the Chimera Ant arc. And once we thought we had seen it all, we were introduced to a particular being called Neferpito, who now held the previously vacant role of Royal Guard. The introduction of the Royal Guards officially shifted the tone of this story. We knew that the Chimera Ants were a threat, but we had yet to feel truly threatened, and Pito promptly changed that. In their first fight, Pito pressed the main cast and killed Kite. Now, killing Kite is noticeable, it's important, because until this point, Kite had been seen as a sort of safety net. While Gon and Killable fought the other ants and perfected their usage of Nen, Kite always felt like a last resort if anything were to go wrong. For Pito to be brought into the story and almost immediately change the dynamic of what we had come to expect was jarring. And when we learned that Pito was only one of an eventual 3 Royal Guards, the stakes continued to increase, and any assurance we had in the main cast, or even the Hunter Association at large, felt like it was slowly fading away. As the Royal Guards were being thrust into the narrative spotlight, the rest of the colony systematically took control of the NGL and became a legitimate militaristic force. But that's not what caused the uncertainty to build. Yes, the Chimera Ants were a mobile, capable, and intimidating force, but there was something else on the horizon that was incoming. Something that had been hinted at for a while at this point in the story. Something that was expected to change the dynamic of everything we had seen up until this point. Someone who would rule over all the chaos we had seen unfold and whose power would put to shame everything we had seen thus far. For while the Royal Guards were oppressive in their own right, someone needed to rule over them. And who better to rule over Royal Guards than royalty itself? Building up hype, excitement, concern, fear, or any specific emotion is hard. Finding a way to captivate an audience enough while also providing necessary information is hard, and many stories struggle to build a character or a moment effectively. But the build-up is only part of the equation. In order to complete the equation, it's fundamental that the build-up has a satisfying payoff. And Meruem is that satisfying payoff. From his grotesque birth, if you can call it that, to his apathetic killing of Peggy, to his abrupt takeover of the Republic of East Gorteau, Meruem's presence demanded attention. The power that he displayed was terrifying in the same way a slasher film is. You know people are going to die, but you can't look away. Togashi spent so much time building up the King of the Chimera Ants, and once we experienced him, we were hooked. Meruem managed to not only meet the level of hype that was being built for him, he exceeded it. Togashi found some way to simultaneously build up the arrival of the king while still leaving us shocked by how incredible he actually was. To say Meruem garnered our attention in his first scene would be an understatement, and with the audience's collective attention, he went to put the world on notice. When the world took notice of Meruem, it was interesting. Here was this absolute unit, yet something was missing. This entity that demanded the attention of Netero and some of the most prolific hunters felt slightly off. Usually, when an antagonist is properly perceived as the threat that they are, there's a level of excitement. The antagonist is excited to get their plan in motion and feels unstoppable, while the protagonist and his friends feel the need to quell this threat. The dynamic between Meruem and the rest of the cast lacked that excitement, yet it still found a way to be compelling. But how? Well, the answer is relatively simple. That excitement was replaced with something something more potent. Meruem was not a being hellbent on revenge. He was not a being focused on destroying the world in order to make it anew. He was not a being who had been wronged by the world. He was hungry. Meruem planned to take over the world, that is true, but his motives were both unique and a testament to his psychology. Meruem saw humans as a good source of food and nothing more. That's reflected in his demeanor towards mankind. He held no malice, no anger or fear. He only felt hunger, and he only held contempt. He replaced the excitement that we usually see in antagonists with contempt and apathy, which in my opinion is just scarier. It's one thing for someone to hate you, to curse you, to wish to destroy you. It's a whole other thing entirely when someone sees themselves as so superior to you that they can't feel any emotion towards you because you're so insignificant to them. The best use of your existence is to help sustain them, and you should feel honored to be able to do that much. In the same way that we as humans don't feel anything, don't consider the life or the feelings of an ant when we step on it, Meruem thought not of the feelings of humanity and solely desired to rule his species while having 3 square meals a day. This reality creates a new type of terror, a new kind of fear, a new sort of trepidation that takes hold of everyone present, the audience included, and demands that you take notice. This juxtaposition of Meruem's feelings toward humanity and his effect on humanity is a true masterclass in how to garner attention and how to leave a lasting impression. And throughout the arc, we're left to wonder how. Just how are the hunters supposed to defeat this threat? Multiple times we're given the old bait and switch. Whenever we think that the hunters have scraped together some sort of an advantage, it's revealed that the advantage isn't enough, and that in the long run, it may be more of a hindrance than it is helpful. The threat of Meruem and his royal guards are too much. They're too imposing, they're too monstrous, and even with the help of other chimera ants and Isaac Netro himself, victory seems uncertain at best and non-existent at worst. This uncertainty in the face of this monster creates a uniquely hopeless situation, because how do you beat this kind of monster? Well, you don't. If Meruem was a static character, then he would have lost the most important aspect to his character, his eventual humanity. As the arc progresses, Meruem evolves from a self-centered monarch to a being capable of love. Meruem's relationship with Komugi is the catalyst of growth for the king. Without it, we don't see him evolve past what he was when he was first introduced. It's through their relationship and subsequent Gungi matches that we start to see compassion and care from Meruem. And not only is this in opposition to everything else we've seen in the story so far, but Komugi seems like the least likely person to garner such feelings from the king. Komugi was a blind girl born into a poor family of 12 in the Republic of East Gorto. Clumsy, self-deprecating, and not very bright, Komugi was for all intents and purposes unimpressive. That is, except for her unfathomable skill in the game of Gungi. As her nation's representative for the game, Komugi was expected to have considerable skill, yeah, but what was unexpected was just how skillful she truly was. She is the only person in the world of Hunter x Hunter to never lose a game to Meruem. That may sound unimpressive, but when you consider that Meruem has defeated every other master of their respective board game up until he met Komugi, calling this feat by her impressive is an understatement. Meruem is a genius in anything he attempts. He's able to both recognize patterns in both behavior and strategy while having the ability to rapidly evolve his understanding of and approach to any situation in order to gain the upper hand. He's probably the smartest individual we've seen in the story, which is saying something when the story also includes individuals like Karapika, Jing, Krollo, and Periston. So Komugi's ability to never lose to Meruem is an amazing display of intelligence, even if it's only in this particular game, but that feat of intellect is what garnered Meruem's attention. It's in this relationship that Meruem feels for another individual past what he's felt for any of his subordinates, which, I mean, in my opinion, I don't think he really felt much for his subordinates up to this point, but that's a whole different conversation. We see him not only feel these emotions, but we also see him act upon them. And as he's experiencing these newfound feelings, his demeanor changes, and that has a lasting effect on the story. Interestingly enough, I think this emotional shift in Meruem is actually quite similar to the shift we see in Killua throughout the series. It's this shift in combination with another reality that brings Meruem's character development to the forefront of this arc. The other reality I'm referencing being the monstrous side of human nature, specifically shown in both Netero and Gum. It's been well discussed how the creature that embodied monstrosity became more human than the actual human character he ended up fighting. This contrast between where Meruem is at the end of the arc compared to where Netero and Gon are stand in stark contrast with each other. The individuals we thought were the hope of humanity and the light in a dark world respectively ended up showing us that anyone can become a monster when the opportunity presents itself. And Meruem showcased that one can grow and mature past what they once knew and learn to love and value others besides themselves. The character arc for Meruem is beautiful, especially when taking into consideration the events of the story and other characters. The way in which Meruem's personal arc danced alongside the themes of this arc and the story of Hunter x Hunter as a whole highlighted the themes in newfound ways while spotlighting the opposite end of this developmental spectrum seen in Gon. This effective utilization of Meruem's story to further emphasize certain story elements is why his evolution is so great. Simply put, Meruem's story feels necessary to tell the story of Hunter x Hunter. He isn't the main protagonist, but without a character like Meruem, I believe the impact of this narrative doesn't land as effectively. Meruem, in my opinion, transcended the character and became an embodiment of certain themes, and that makes his journey forever ingrained in the hearts and minds of anyone who has watched the Hunter x Hunter anime. I personally believe that Meruem left quite the legacy, especially for only being several weeks old. He's one of the best antagonists in the anime. He existed as a harbinger of terror, while also undergoing one of the most intriguing character developments we've seen in this story. It's hard to think about the story of Hunter x Hunter without a few key individuals, and I believe that Meruem is one of those individuals. And it's there where we find our answer, at least for a fictional being. I believe that what makes Meruem so memorable is his necessity to one of the greatest stories in anime. For when greatness can bloom within greatness, it's pretty hard not to take notice, and it's even harder to forget about it. Thank you all for watching the video, and let me know in the comment section why Meruem for you was such an unforgettable character. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe for more content like this. With all that being said, I have been Wheat.